Are there any ethnic groups present in these thousands of facial images which are presented? So, one of the reasons why face recognition is getting a lot of attention is because the documents which we carry to prove who we are can be very easily faked. So here is an example of a passport. And it turns out that a large number of fake passports are issued, because in order to get a passport, you have to take a couple of pieces of identification, and quite often those pieces of identification can be fake, for example, birth certificate or any other kind of document. And as a result, important documents like passports or driver license are not as reliable as they used to be. It's very easy for a person to have multiple documents, either in the same name or different names. The other way we identify ourselves, or the system knows who you are, is based on information like passwords or PIN. When you log in, when you have to use the password, or you withdraw money from the bank account, you use the PIN. But it turns out most of us use some very simple passwords. The 10 most common passwords are listed in that order. The most common password used is the word password itself. Okay? So it's very easy for an imposter to crack your password. It's not some random 8-character combination which one needs to guess, and that's a serious problem. The other problem is that personal data is often routinely lost and stolen. I mean, you know, every time you use a credit card, the department store is maintaining a database, and quite often that database itself is lost, and as soon as it is lost, your identity gets compromised, and this is referred to as identity fraud. The next problem is that of phishing. I'm sure you know about it. You often get some email which looks like it is a legitimate email. For example, maybe it's coming from your bank, although it's not really coming from the bank. And they will ask you to reveal some personal information. And quite often people actually respond to such email and provide their personal information. And as soon as you provide that personal information, again, your identity gets compromised. So the challenge which we have is, how do we absolutely recognize an individual, who this person is? And we cannot rely on the credentials, and by credentials I mean the documents which you carry, or the secret which only you are supposed to know. And so the question we have, are the credentials genuine, and are they in the possession of the authorized person? And this has huge security implications, not only the national security or homeland security, but also organizational security, whether the privileged data from an organization is being accessed by unauthorized persons, and as well as our own personal security, somebody's tapping into our bank accounts. So that's why recognizing a person based on some body characteristics, whether it is face, fingerprint, or iris of the eye, has been receiving a lot of attention. And in fact, many government agencies now use biometrics for identifying an individual. Not only government agencies, many commercial organizations are also using. So if you go to a Disney World, for example, in Orlando, you have to provide your fingerprint. All right? Why do they need a fingerprint? Because they want to make sure that when you buy a ticket, that ticket is only used by one person, and you cannot share your ticket with other people. So when you buy a ticket and want to insert the ticket in the turnstile to get into the Orlando Magic Kingdom, you also have to put your fingerprint. And now that fingerprint gets linked to that ticket. So next time that ticket is used, it expects to see the same fingerprint. So examples like that are becoming fairly routine. In banks, for example, if you want to withdraw money, you have to use some kind of a biometric information. But there are many biometric characteristics which people have been using. And the three most common are the first three which I have listed: fingerprint, face, and iris. These are the three most common biometrics or important biometrics which are being studied. There are other biometrics as well. The fourth one on the top row is the voice biometric. So if you are talking on the phone, calling the bank, for example, the bank can verify who the customer is based on the voice pattern. The last one in the front row is the shape of the hand, and this is being used in a large number of factories for time and attendance applications. What time the worker came in and what time the worker left. Because typically in a factory, in order to tell what time a worker come in, you punch a clock. There's a card there, and you punch it to the clock, and the time gets stamped on the paper card. And then when you leave, you do the same thing. But there's something called buddy punching. You know, your friend may be punching the card for you as opposed to you doing it. So those are and there are some many other biometric characteristics as well. But in this talk, I'm going to focus mostly on the face, and so this background I gave you just to tell you why biometric recognition, and in particular face recognition, is getting so much attention. So the reason why face is a very desirable biometric to use for personal authentication is because we use it all the time. We don't use fingerprints, and we don't use iris to recognize each other, but we use face to recognize each other. The advantage of a face is that you can identify a person at a distance. In the case of a fingerprint, you cannot hold your fingerprint at 10 meters and get recognized, whereas in the case of a face, you can do that. Same thing with the iris. You have to be in the close proximity of the sensor in order to get recognition. Although there are some research projects where they're trying to design an iris sensing camera which will work at 10 meters, 20 meters, and so on. But with face, with the zoom lens and so on, it is possible to do that now. The sensor which is used to capture face is very low-cost sensor. I mean, cameras are everywhere. You have your own mobile phone with a camera. You have a digital camera. These are fairly commonly available devices. Other advantage is non-contact acquisition. So in the case of fingerprints, some people don't like it because you have to touch a surface. In the case of camera, you don't have to touch anything. So, there are some arguments against using biometric that you'll catch some disease because you're putting your finger on the sensing surface. Other main characteristics of face is covert acquisition. That is, your biometric can be acquired without you knowing it. And that's where the surveillance cameras comes in. So you may not even see that there is a camera in a particular department store, but there is hidden cameras there. So covert acquisition is another important thing. And then finally, legacy databases. That is, our pictures have been taken for a variety of government-issued documents. So there's a huge database already available of face images. So that when you want to be recognized, you don't have to start all over and collect databases. Whereas that's why iris has not been as popular in many applications, because there is no iris database. Iris recognition started only 10 years ago, and if you want to use it at a large scale, you have to enroll everybody in iris recognition. Now, fingerprints is also not as popular because it's primarily until recently used for criminal activities. But face recognition, if you want to get driver license, you want to get passport, the face image is always taken, it is available someplace. So in the case of state of Florida as an example, they have issued 50 million driver licenses so far, and their face database is 50 million images. And so if you want to match somebody against this database is already available. So there are two ways in which we do face recognition. One mode of operation is one-to-one match. It's called verification. So if you want to log into your computer, the computer has a laptop, has a camera, and instead of entering your ID and password, you simply show your face to the camera. And in this case, the system knows that who is the owner of the laptop, so you want to make sure that the person who is presenting the face in front of the camera is the person who is registered to be the laptop owner. So that's a one-to-one match. That's a simpler problem than one-to-N matching, where you cannot trust who the person is. And this is where the multiple enrollment problem comes in, and this is where one-to-N matching is very useful. So you go with a driver license application, your photograph is taken, but the system doesn't want to trust, or the authorities don't want to trust that you are really John Smith as you are claiming to be. So they want to make sure that you have never been issued a driver license before, so that image has to be matched to all the 50 million images in the database to make sure that you have not been previously enrolled. And so one-to-N matching is computationally more difficult problem than one-to-one matching. So there are a number of applications of face recognition, access control. If you want to enter a building or access your laptop, surveillance, monitor.